There is a silence that speaks louder than all the noise of the world. It exists in the space between heartbeats, in the breath that suspends itself between inhale and exhale, in the moment a soul departs the body. In that moment, when the veil is at its thinnest, something ancient and eternal stirs. We are not alone, not in life and certainly not in death. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, did not merely offer prophecies. He unveiled an invisible architecture that governs both this life and the one that comes after. According to Cayce, when we die, we do not fall into a void. We are received, we are met, not by random forces or arbitrary fates, but by a conscious intelligence that knows us intimately. This presence is the soul guide. The role of the soul guide is not a myth or poetic metaphor. It is a metaphysical function, assigned by vibrational affinity and karmic alignment. It is chosen before birth and continues after death. It waits patiently for our return, not with judgment, but with remembrance. Imagine crossing the threshold of life and finding a familiar presence, not with a face or a name, but with a vibration that feels like home. This is your guide, not a guardian in the traditional sense, but a mirror to your soul's journey, holding the keys to the memories you've forgotten and the truths you're ready to remember. In Cayce's readings, he described the afterlife not as a static paradise or punishment, but as a dynamic realm of consciousness. Upon death, the soul passes through various planes, each corresponding to a planetary vibration, and at every stage, the guide is there, not to lead but to illuminate. It does not instruct, it reflects. It amplifies what you are, showing you the threads of choices, intentions, and desires that wove your earthly existence. Why does this matter now, while you are still alive? Because the connection to your soul guide is not limited to the afterlife. It whispers now, it nudges you in dreams, synchronizes events, softens your grief, sharpens your intuition. When you pause long enough to truly listen, not with ears but with awareness, you begin to feel it. Not as a separate being, but as a part of you that never forgot where you came from. Death, as Cayce saw it, is not the end but a doorway. And standing just beyond that doorway is the one who has always walked beside you, invisibly shaping your path, watching in stillness, loving without condition. But here's the truth, few dare to speak. The soul guide does not just guide you after death. It guides you toward death in the most sacred way. It prepares your soul not for an ending, but for an opening. It plants seeds of detachment, whispers the importance of forgiveness, and encourages you to live in alignment with your higher self, not as a spiritual exercise, but as a preparation for reunion. To recognize this guide now is to die consciously later. To live with awareness of this presence is to strip fear from the idea of death and replace it with reverence. You are being prepared. Right now, as you hear these words, something ancient in you is awakening. Not a belief, but a knowing. The soul guide is real, and it is listening to you just as you are listening to it. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel. Before you took your first breath, before your body formed in the womb, you were consciousness, unbound, radiant, aware. In that space between incarnations, where time does not tick but flows like light, you were met by beings of resonance, and among them stood your soul guide. This was not the beginning of your relationship, it was a continuation. The bond with your guide did not originate in your current lifetime, it is ancient. It transcends lifetimes, often weaving through incarnations as companion, teacher, witness. In the vast halls of soul memory, there are meetings, moments of intentional design, where you and your guide map out the blueprint of your incarnation. Edgar Cayce referred to these designs as soul contracts. Not rigid fates, but agreements, flexible, responsive, infused with free will and higher purpose. And at the center of those agreements was your guide, not imposing, but assisting in clarity. What lessons did you agree to experience? Which karmic threads did you choose to weave or release? What gifts did you choose to bring forward? And which shadows did you agree to embrace in order to transmute? Your guide holds the record of these intentions, not to remind you with words, but to realign you through vibration. Every time you experience déjà vu, every time a path opens before you at the precise moment you're ready, that's not coincidence. That's orchestration. A whisper from the architecture of your soul's map. But why forget? Why would we as souls choose to enter a life veiled from these sacred memories? Because forgetting allows for authentic choice. Because only in the darkness can the light of free will burn brightly. And your soul guide agreed to remain conscious, to hold the thread steady while you dance through the illusion of separation. The guide never intervenes to remove your suffering. It observes with infinite compassion, because it knows that what you call suffering is often the birth canal of transformation. Its role is not to stop you from falling, but to remind you, through subtle signs and profound silences, how to rise. The human experience is a sacred amnesia, and in the forgetting we become seekers. We ask questions that lead us not to answers, but to awakenings. And the guide, patient and unwavering, becomes the sacred echo, the voice within the silence, waiting for your readiness to remember. Have you ever felt like you were being watched, not with judgment, but with love? Have you ever stood at a crossroads, uncertain, and suddenly felt an inner clarity emerge, unexplainable and yet undeniable? That is your guide in motion, not acting upon you, but reminding you of your own deeper knowing. Cayce described the soul as light, and the guide as a tuning fork that keeps that light from scattering. When life pulls you into chaos, pain, confusion, the guide does not stop the storm. It helps you hear the song beneath the noise, the vibration of your original intention. And here's the mystery. Your guide is not separate from you. It is a differentiated aspect of your higher consciousness. It is the you that never fell asleep. To commune with this guide is not to call upon something foreign, but to awaken the silent companion that has always been within. It is to become whole, to walk not behind nor ahead of yourself, but beside yourself, in remembrance. You made a vow before you came here, to live, to learn, to return. And the guide made a vow as well, to wait, to witness, to walk with you through the veil and beyond, and it has never left. Death, as we commonly perceive it, is but a curtain drawn by the mind. To the soul it is simply movement, a shifting of frequency, a change in light. And as Cayce revealed through his trance readings, this movement is not chaotic. It follows a sacred path, a cosmic itinerary, where each step is imbued with intelligence and meaning. When the body ceases, the soul does not. In that instant of release, you are met not by emptiness but by an overwhelming familiarity, as if you've returned to a place you never truly left. And in this passage, your soul guide appears not as a being of form, but as a field of recognition, a signature of presence that brings immediate calm and remembrance. Cayce described the transition after death as passing through realms or dimensions, each corresponding to celestial bodies, not in the physical sense, but as symbolic representations of soul states. The first realm is the etheric reflection of Earth, where the soul gradually detaches from material attachments. Here, the guide helps dissolve the clinging illusions, the unresolved emotional energies, the identities we once wore like masks. It is not a judgment, it is an unfolding. The guide does not demand confession, it invites clarity. Through resonance, it helps the soul review its life not with shame, but with transparency, seeing clearly the impact of choices, the echoes of thought, the ripples of intention. In this review, you are both viewer and participant. And your guide. It is the thread that connects each scene, offering subtle insight, weaving the tapestry of your soul's evolution with tenderness and precision. Beyond this reflective plane lies the realm of alignment, where the soul's vibration determines the next stage of experience. Here, you may meet others, guides, ancestors, soul companions, but always your primary guide remains, constant, still, radiant. Some souls continue to higher planes of learning. Others, driven by karmic momentum or desire, prepare for reincarnation. But in each possibility, the guide plays a silent role, balancing, suggesting, holding the mirror up to your deeper will. And yet, Even now, as you hear these words, you may sense that this journey is not far away. In dreams, in near-death experiences, in mystical states, we sometimes glimpse these realms. They are not distant. They exist just beyond the threshold of conditioned perception. Cayce often spoke of the importance of meditation, prayer, and stillness, not as religious acts, but as portals. When we turn inward, we do not escape life. We return to it more consciously. We soften the noise and begin to perceive the whisper of our guide more clearly. Have you ever felt a presence near you in moments of transition, when someone dies, when something in you dies? That presence is real. It is the same that will stand beside you when your final breath becomes your first breath into the next world. But here's a secret many forget. Death is not the only transition. Every day, we experience small deaths, the end of beliefs, the release of emotions, the surrender of control. And in each of these, your guide is present, holding space for rebirth. To live with awareness of your guide is to die gracefully, again and again while still in the body. It is to become fluid, light, unburdened. It is to see death not as rupture, but as return. The realms are real. The journey is inevitable. But the presence of your soul guide makes it sacred. The soul does not speak in words. It communicates through vibration, images, symbols, echoes of the infinite woven into the fabric of the ordinary. And your soul guide, ever near, uses this silent language to reach you, not to command, but to remind. According to Cayce, the soul's awareness operates beyond linear logic. It perceives in patterns. It understands through resonance. And so your guide doesn't interrupt your life with loud proclamations. Instead, it orchestrates encounters, a phrase in a book, a stranger's gaze, the uncanny timing of a dream. These are not coincidences. They are spiritual punctuation marks left by your guide in the text of your daily life. Have you noticed them? Perhaps you felt the inexplicable certainty to turn down one road instead of another. Perhaps you've heard a voice within that doesn't sound like your own thoughts, yet it carries a clarity you cannot ignore. This is the language of the guide, indirect, intimate, unmistakable. The soul listens in ways the intellect cannot. And the more you attune to subtlety, the more fluent you become in this sacred dialogue. But it requires stillness, not the absence of noise, but the presence of receptivity. It requires trust, not in an external force, but in your own capacity to perceive the invisible. Your guide is not here to fix your problems. It is here to guide you through them, because every challenge is a coded invitation, and within each one lies a key to deeper awakening. The guide will not remove the obstacle. It will point to the strength you forgot you had. This dialogue is lifelong. And like any relationship, it deepens with presence. When you begin to honor it, when you treat your dreams as messages, your emotions as signals, your synchronicities as road signs, you activate an ancient remembering. In Cayce's readings, this internal communication was often emphasized as a spiritual practice. He spoke of listening to the inner voice, not as metaphor, but as method. He urged us to record our dreams, to meditate not for escape but for communion, to act on inner promptings even when they defy reason. Why? Because the more you respond, the louder the guide becomes, not in volume, but in clarity. What once seemed random begins to shimmer with intention. What once felt isolated begins to weave into a story, your soul's unfolding story. And here lies a great mystery. Sometimes the guide appears not as a gentle whisper, but as disruption. When life breaks down, when everything you clung to collapses, when identity dissolves, this too can be the voice of the guide. Not punishment, but passage. Not abandonment, but deeper presence. Because your guide does not always say what you want to hear. It reveals what your soul needs to remember. And often this remembering requires shedding layers that no longer serve you. So listen, not with effort, but with softness, not with fear, but with reverence. You are not waiting to be guided. You are learning how to hear. And in that hearing, your life becomes a conversation. Every experience, a sentence. Every silence, a comma. Every transformation, a new chapter. The symbols are everywhere. In the flight of a bird, in the repetition of numbers, in the feeling that you are being led, gently, toward something greater, even when you do not yet know what that is. Your soul guide is always speaking. The question is, are you willing to listen without needing to understand? That is the key. At the end of the journey, there is not a gate but a gaze. There is not a judgment but a recognition, a return not to a place but to a state of being where everything lost is remembered. When the soul completes its earthly cycle, when the body yields and the breath dissolves, something ancient takes its rightful place again. You are met, not by strangers, but by resonance. And above all by your soul guide, who has waited without waiting, who has watched without interference, who has loved without condition. This moment, the reunion, is not theatrical. It is not grand in the way the mind imagines. It is subtle, pure, unimaginably intimate. You do not fall to your knees. You fall into yourself. Into the part of you that never forgot, that never feared, that always knew. Your guide does not say you did well. It does not say you failed. It simply becomes the mirror, and in that reflection you remember every intention, every joy, every sorrow, every silent prayer whispered in your darkest nights. Cayce often spoke of this meeting as a sacred accounting, not of deeds but of vibration. Your soul is not measured by actions but by alignment, and your guide, being of the same thread as your higher self, helps you integrate the journey with compassion, clarity and depth. From here, choices are made again. Some souls choose rest, a return to the fields of light. Others choose service, becoming guides themselves. And some, moved by the pulse of evolution, return to Earth, bringing back fragments of remembrance to plant within the density of matter. But always, the guide remains connected. Even in rebirth, it follows not as a shadow but as an inner compass. It takes on new forms, a mentor's words, a stranger's kindness, the wisdom that rises unbidden in moments of quiet. You are never without it. And now, here in life, in this very breath, that presence surrounds you. Though veiled by noise, it waits patiently for your turning inward. It asks no worship, it offers no dogma. It is presence, silent, still, infinite. To remember your guide now is not merely spiritual, it is essential, because when you live with awareness of the unseen, you begin to walk differently. You listen more deeply, you trust more fully, you suffer more consciously, and in doing so, you suffer less. The soul does not seek perfection, it seeks wholeness. It seeks to embrace all experiences, all parts of itself, and bring them into coherence. And your soul guide is the guardian of that coherence, not by correcting your path, but by holding your essence steady as you wander and awaken. It is not your master, it is your memory. So as you walk through the days to come, in joy or despair, clarity or confusion, remember this: there is a part of you that never forgets. There is a presence that has walked with you through lifetimes. And when your time comes to cross the final threshold, you will not walk alone. You never have. Your guide will be there, not to lead you, but to walk beside you. Not to teach you, but to help you remember that you already know. The soul returns home not by traveling outward, but by awakening inward. And in that awakening, the guide becomes what it has always been, a reflection of your divine origin, a companion in eternity, a whisper that never fades. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel and click on the video that just appeared on your screen. It was chosen especially for you. I know you'll love it.